Welcome to our session today called Team Members, 3 Tools to Improve the Work from Home Experience. My name is Nathan Austin. I'll be presenting today, and behind the scenes we've got Stephanie Kingsley, both of us from MyTech Partners. I'm excited to share this with you today because we've been going through different sessions relative to helping managers and supervisors and department heads with some structure, but this session is very specifically intended for the people on your team. So you have individuals that are either working from home. This also applies to those who maybe in the future are just travel more or more mobile. So these are some things that they might be able to think through and some tools to optimize to improve their remote working experience or work from home experience. Before we get going, we will be doing about 30 minutes of prescriptive content today, and then afterwards we will open it up for questions and answers. But as we go through the session, please go ahead and put any questions you have. So if we're going through a certain section, you want to know more, go ahead and throw a question in there, and we will go through all those questions by the end of the session or at the end of the session. So please use the Q&A panel on the right-hand side of your screen. I believe it's on the right-hand side of your screen. So let's get going. So 3 tools to improve work from home. In particular, this is going to be a how-to session. We're not going to be going deep into, there's so much more we could be going into, but this session is very prescriptive about some tips and tricks around how to optimize these 3 tools in order to optimize your work from home, your personal work from home experience. So we're going to start by talking about what are some of the common problems or challenges that people face when they work from home. And because I feel that we could show you how to do all this stuff, but if you don't put in the context of why or the purpose and the problem you're trying to solve, sometimes it doesn't connect the dots as well. So hopefully we're gonna hit on some of the common challenges that we're going to be addressing and then we're going to hit into here's how you optimize these tools and some common tips and tricks. And granted, not every single one of the tips or the pointers that we give you are going to be applicable to everyone. I'm sure that's not going to be the case, but you can identify the ones that make sense for you. And again, the idea is to optimize and customize the experience as you use these tools yourself. So once we go through those, then we'll give you kind of a cheat sheet that'll give you some tips that you can follow for each one of these applications in our Teams, SharePoint, and OneDrive. And then we'll open it up for Q&A and some recommended next steps. So, all right, before we dig in, I always like to say 1 minute about MyTech. Just so folks know, we are a small, medium business technology consulting company, an IT services company. We've been in business for 20 years now, and over those 20 years, we've learned a lot about a combination of proven technologies that work together that can deliver consistent results for our clients. So look, we understand that there's a lot of problems, a lot of challenges that we all face in operating our organizations or our department or our role. And we're not expecting to solve all those problems, but we just at least hope to take the technology challenges off your plate. And that's by collaborating with you, hopefully doing sessions like this, so that you can focus on the highest and best use of your time. Great acronym I like is HABU, highest and best use. So we hope that for you. Our goal, and we coach our team to make IT easy for you, our client. Doesn't always mean it makes it easy for us, and it doesn't mean we're always perfect at that. We are definitely not a perfect organization. We make mistakes. So if you feel we haven't made IT easy for you, please let us know. It's our opportunity to improve. And finally, we know that through our proven IT strategy, collaborating with you, our client, we know that our clients can achieve 4 times more value and productivity from their IT investments. So if you want to learn more about that, please get in touch with us. We'd be happy to talk about it. But like I said, 1 minute about MyTech. Let's dig in. So let's start with the common challenges that we're looking to address when we work from home. So first and foremost, and some of these challenges, by the way, aren't just work from home challenges. Finding information, be able to be clear and find the information that you're looking for. So sometimes that's a challenge, and so we'll talk about some ways in which you can do that. And another challenge is maybe you can find it, but it sure takes you a lot of clicks to get there. So are there ways in which you might be able to reduce the number of clicks by optimizing the way these tools are displaying and how they're displaying information or how you access the information in those tools? And sometimes the way to find information faster is to eliminate the noise. we all are inundated with alerts from different tools, email and other notifications. And so how can you customize those so that you're only getting the notifications that you really want, so you're eliminating some of the noise that can really distract you from working on being your highest and best use. One of the other challenges that we're probably all too accustomed to at this moment is slow bandwidth. Sometimes things, internet seems to be working fine, and then you get the video pauses or you get choppy voice, so slow bandwidth. What are some tips and things you can do to manage dealing with slow bandwidth? Because that can help you when you're working from home, where you might not have the same bandwidth that you're used to when you're in the office. And finally, hard to access files or information. That's different from finding information, because part of the hard to access is, are there ways in which you can eliminate the need of a VPN, for example? Are there ways you can optimize and syncing information between your corporate network and your corporate device? Things like that we'll cover. So it's hard to access information, and how do we make that easier for a team member to be able to do? So those are some of the key themes that we're going to be working on today relative to some optimization of these Teams, SharePoint, and OneDrive. So without further ado, let's dig in to 3 tools to optimize the work from home experience. I'm going to start by going into Teams. So I'm going to open up Teams down here. And first and foremost, I'm going to start with an indicator. You notice there's a couple, there's a notification down here that I've got some conversations or some notifications for me. So I just want to start with this view, and in particular, look at the notifications. Notice I've got a notification here that I've got some unread information in Teams. I've got at least one unread conversation in chat. It also gives me up here in the activity tab an indicator. We'll get into those in a moment, but there's also some visual cues for you to look at. So for instance, here under the marketing team, you see how this is bolded and the other ones aren't. That's an indicator that there's a conversation in there. As well as, notice I've got this down here at hidden teams, and there's a notification down here. So it gives me, I've got some visual cues, starts down here at the system tray, but then I've got some other visual cues to be able to see the different conversations that are some of the different notifications that I have. So I'll start with that, because one of the things that I like to talk about, that for me, if I've just come back to my computer and I open up Teams and I see an indicator down here, hey, I've got some notifications. One of the fastest ways that I do that is I like to go to the activity tab. And the reason why, so I'm going to click on that. The reason why I like to go to the activity tab, and notice it just took that notification away, but it took it away not only here, it also took it away here on the team section. And the reason why is because it takes me right at the top. It's going to give me anything that I haven't read yet or anything that I haven't seen yet. So for instance, Stephanie mentioned this here in the cross-functional team. So if I click on that, it's already showing that here, hey, who's available next Thursday at 2 p.m. for a meeting? So it automatically shows that now I've read that, and it took away those notifications. So one of the things I like that simplifies, so instead of having to, for instance, go between different channels or teams or clicking into different areas, you can go to the activity stream, and it'll basically take you to those unread components. If you recall, by just clicking on the activity, it took away this notification, it took away this notification, and if you recall, there was a notification down here too in one of my hidden teams. I didn't even have to click into it to find it. All I did was click up here on the activity tab. It took me right to the exact mention and comment that it was relative to me, because Stephanie tagged general, so it gives me that visual indicator. So now that you've seen that, one of the other things that's kind of a natural other point that you can look at in Teams is when you have a conversation like this. So for instance, one of the things you can do in email is you can flag an email, or you can mark it as unread, which I would recommend flagging it versus marking it as unread. But I'll show you a couple illustrations of something you can do with a chat, because now that this is marked that I've seen it, what if I want to come back to it, but yet I want to make sure that I don't forget it? So there's a couple things you can do. Again, this is all about personal preference, but in Teams, if you go over here you hover over it, notice I'm going to not hover over it, but I'm going to hover over this. It gives me the little breadcrumbs over here on the side for more options. I'm going to click on that, and it gives me a couple different options. I can save this message. I can mark it as unread. If I wanted to, for instance, maybe I want to share it to Outlook, so I could actually click on this and it'll open up an email template for me to send to myself or to send to somebody else, and then I could get it into some other productivity tools and marking it, flagging it, or scheduling it on my calendar, things like that. But for the sake of this, I'm going to click Save. Just so you see it, notice it gives me a little visual indicator up here that it's saved. I'll show you how to access that in a moment, but I'm also going to mark it as unread so you just at least see what it does. So before I mark it as unread though, notice this is not bolded and there's no indicators here. So I want you to see what that does when I do actually mark this one as unread, if that's applicable to you. Which I'm kind of glad it actually didn't actually bold it here, but it should give me, notice what it does. It just bolded down here because she put this down here. Where was this made? What? Oh, it was in the cross-functional team. So that's where I was trying. Let me go to that. So this is the conversation. Oh, it didn't actually mark it as unread. Now that I've seen it again, there we go. So once I marked it as unread, it didn't give me another visual indicator that I had something new, but what it does is it bolded the channel that showed that I had an unread message. So I wanted to show that just because if that's something that works for you, go ahead and use it. Although I would probably, just because it doesn't give you the best visual cues, and it can easily then mark as unread as soon as I click on it, it's gonna or click away from it. Now it goes back as unread again. So that's probably not the best way to do it. I would use the saved function, which I already did. So notice it's already saved. So I'm not going to unsave it, but I'm going to show you where to access it. So if you've marked a message as saved because you want to be able to come back to it, you want to make sure that I don't want to neglect Stephanie and not get back to her, but I don't have the answer for her right now. I'm going to go up here, click on my little indicator up here, and notice there's an option that says saved messages. So I'm going to click on saved, and now it basically shows me I've only saved 2 messages, but it shows me those 2 saved messages. So then I can actually click on this one, and I just by clicking on that, I can unsave the message right here. So I don't have to go back to it. I can click on it to work on it. So this is actually going to take me to that message that I saved, and I can comment on it, or I can just say, no, I'm good. I don't need to save that again. So again, to go back to just the conversation is up in the activity bar. This gives you any new activity that you need. For instance, like Stephanie reacted to my message. I missed a call from Stephanie. This is our demo tenant. I've got a lot more activity in my MyTech tenant or my MyTech account versus our demo account here. But you get the idea is that you can hover over a message, and I would recommend if that's something you need to do something with, and you don't want to forget, save the message, and then you can access your saved messages by clicking up here and selecting saved. All right, so that's a couple visual indicators as far as being able to use the activity tab and saving messages. Now I'm going to click into chat because I've got a couple indicators here that I've got a chat available. So notice it bolds it, but as soon as I highlight it, I defaulted to Stephanie. So she actually made me a note. I can thumbs up that, I can comment on it. But the other thing that I like to highlight here is that if the larger your organization, for instance, I know in MyTech, it's not like we're a large organization, but we have 80 people on our team, but I have a bunch of chats that just scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll. And so in order for me to optimize, I have actually chosen to use a tool called pinning. You can actually pin individual contacts or individual chats so that they appear at the top. And I'll show you how to do that. So Stephanie is one of those folks that I want to pin. So notice when I hover over it, the little 3 breadcrumbs or the ellipses appear. I can click on that and it gives me the option to pin. So I'm just going to click pin and watch what it does to this chat. It moves it to the top in a pinned section. And I also talk a lot, chat a lot with Gerald and Stephanie. So I'm going to hover over it again, click on the breadcrumbs, and I'm going to pin that conversation as well. So now if I had a whole bunch of 10, 20, 30 other chat conversations across my organization, which you will get over time, you can easily pin the conversations right here at the top of the people or the groups that you're chatting with on a more consistent basis. So hoping that's something that can help you manage so you're not having to scroll and scroll and scroll. I mean, another quick way to find someone is you could quickly and easily search up here. The search bar does a pretty good job of identifying people where Stephanie is in there, and that can help you. But again, I have to type in Stephanie's name. So that's a way you could do it. But I would definitely highly recommend if there are people that are on your team that you chat with consistently or groups, pin them, and then it'll appear right at the top of your chat window. So want to just illustrate a couple things. So now again, the chat indicators have gone away. So it's one thing that the notifications and the chat indicators as far as how those are working. You can also pin, since we're on the topic of pinning, you can also pin individual channels. This is actually something I learned. I didn't even know you could do that. But let's say I'm part of the operations team general. Notice this is bolded, so that means there's a message in here that I haven't read. So I'm going to click on that. And this last message, Stephanie must have just posted. Now it's unbolded. So I can, but I see that those are just comments and channels that I can get into. So, but if I hover over this again at the channel level, not at the team level, by the way, at the channel level, I can hit the more options breadcrumbs, and notice I can also pin this channel. And that channel now pins at the top. Notice it didn't move the whole team or channel up there. It just basically created a shortcut of the specific channel on that team that I want. So if I wanted to pin the client engagement channel here, I could also pin that one, and it'll go to the top as well. So again, there's certain channels that I operate in more frequently. I can pin those channels to the top. That allows you to sort and manage just quick access to the information that's more pertinent to you. Okay, so that's a couple of those. The other thing that I wanted to illustrate is the ability. Notice I mentioned the hidden teams. So if by default hidden teams, depending on how many teams you have in your organization, you may or may not need to do this. But if you do have a bunch of teams, you can hide them so you don't have to scroll as much. And so if you find something in hidden teams and you want to show it, you can just come over here again, use the breadcrumbs or the ellipse, click on it, and you can say show. It's as simple as that. And now this business continuity team, as soon as I click show, is going to move out of the hidden teams and into my regular team section. So I'm going to click show. And now the change advisory board team is in my regular section. But let's say I wanted to hide this one. I could just come into business continuity team and I could choose to hide. Now that one goes away and it goes down into the hidden teams. So these are just a couple simple things you can do. You can also, for instance, the change advisory board has several teams underneath it. We have a couple of our teams that have 8 or 10 different channels underneath for specific reasons, but I might only need to engage in a couple of them. So for example, let's say the change advisory board channel, a team, I'm only really engaging in the general and the client engagement channel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide these 2 channels, not the whole team, just these channels. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to say hide. And I'm going to click here, hover over the ellipse, click on that, say hide. And so now my 2 channels show, but it also gives me an indicator that there are 2 hidden channels. So this is just a way for you as an individual to really optimize your experience by pinning the team at the top, hiding or showing teams or channels, and then just so that way you're scrolling less, you're clicking less in order to navigate between the different feature sets. So there's a couple other little pieces that I'll show relative to Teams, and then we'll get into SharePoint. So for instance, one of the things, if you want to set the notifications, is let's talk about eliminating the noise. So under any given channel, again, on the breadcrumbs, you can click and you can manage channel notifications. So again, any one of these will give you the option to channel notifications. You can click here and you can say, do I want to get notified? Right now, I'm not getting notified of new posts. Well, what if I want to get notified? So I'm going to say, I want that banner and my feed, and I want to include replies to that. What about mentions? Do I want to turn them off? Maybe I only want to show it in my feed, not in the banner. So click save. So now I've just managed my notifications for this channel, and you can do that on any given channel that you want. The other place that if you want to manage your Teams notifications overall is you have to go up here and click on your profile. So you click on your profile, you come down here to settings. And for those of you who have, if you use Teams on the mobile app, the way to get the settings is on the mobile app in the upper left-hand corner, there's the hamburger icon, which is 3 lines. You click on that on your mobile phone and there's a setting option there, and you can configure your settings on your mobile device as well as far as notifications go. So the settings tab is the same based on mobile or the app here, but there's just different ways to access it. There's just different, it's just in the Teams app versus your mobile. Once you go into settings, there's several different pieces here, of course, but I'm focusing on notifications for today. And there's you can really customize any mentions, how you want messages to handle, membership changes, role changes. Do you want sounds? Do you, when people call you, when you join a meeting, when a meeting starts that you're a part of, or on a team that you're a part of, do you want to pop up? Or what about the chats that are in that meeting? It says mute until I join, or send a message. So anyway, you see, you can manage all these different notifications inside of Teams. And so again, it's just about customizing your notifications by clicking up here on your profile and then hitting settings. One other little tip that I'll show you, since we're already up here in our profile, that if you are working heads down on a topic or an issue, you can actually, one of the tips that I recommend is in your availability indicator, notice how by default it says I'm presenting, because it knows that I'm presenting in this in the Teams application. But I could actually manually select this to do not disturb. So for instance, if I'm in a state where I'm like, you know what, I want to silence all my alerts. So instead of having to change all my notifications, I can just come in here and say, do not disturb. It will block any updates or notifications so that I'm not, if I'm focusing on something, it won't distract me with pop-ups or banners or notifications. And then if I want to come back from that, I just need to hit reset status, and it'll automatically go back to whatever status I'm in, whether I'm available or if I'm on a call or whatever. So a couple little tips there. The last thing on Teams that I'll show you, so I'm going to use the other, we have another Teams instance here. I'm actually going to start a Teams meeting, because one of the things that I think is a common problem that people don't know that you can do as we're working from home and remotely, video is a challenge. So if we have low bandwidth, how do you manage that? So I'm just going to do test video meeting. I'm going to hit meet now. And I've turned off my camera. I don't know if I hit, because I'm already presenting, but one of the things, so you can turn on and off your camera. I think most people know you can do that. But if you click on, again, a trend today, click on the breadcrumbs or the ellipse. And there's also an option to turn off incoming video. So if you are on a Teams meeting and you're starting to experience like it freezing or being choppy, or you're not getting, or it's delayed, there's two things you can do. Even though I know we want to have the video for visual interaction, is you can turn off your video. And if you click on the breadcrumbs, you can also turn off incoming video. So that's something you can do in the moment if you're experiencing poor bandwidth to optimize that, so you can at least participate in the audio part of the conversation. So that's just one little tip there. So, okay, so now enough with Teams. There's a lot there though, so I wanted to hit that really quickly. So I'm going to go into the operations team general channel, and I'm going to illustrate, I'm going to go into files. And so one of the ways in which Teams and SharePoint work together is that basically all of this information lives in SharePoint. So I'm going to go ahead and open up SharePoint up here. And there's, so now all those same files exist. You see those there, and I'll illustrate some things you can do here. Is you can follow the site. So for instance, let's say this is a site that I want to use on a regular basis. I'm going to click up here, say follow it, and I'll show you where that, I'm going to click on that. Hopefully it allows me to follow. It's weird that it's not letting me do that. A couple things that I also like to show is that when you, I don't know why that is. I've never had that problem. You can go into, if you want some different view settings, again, if you click on this is view settings. So you can choose list, compact list, or tiles. You're probably used to that when you're looking into the file explorer. It's one of the ways you can do it. The other thing I like is if you're managing notifications, what if you want to receive notifications about changes here? So you can actually, on the breadcrumbs, you can click on alert me. And if you click on alert me, it's going to manage alerts specifically for this page. So I'll click on that so you get an example of that. And it will pop up specific alerts that you can configure for this page. Notice it says what page we're on, for what user, how do I want to get alerted on what kind of changes. So you can go through that and choose to make those changes and click OK. And then if you want to manage alerts across all the SharePoint site, you can hit manage my alerts, and that actually will manage any of your alerts that you've already set or allow you to create new alerts across your entire SharePoint environment. So that gives you a couple ways to do that there. So the other thing that I'll show you is this little icon right here. One of the powers that you have in SharePoint is the ability to be able to filter your view. So I'm going to click on this, and it'll give me the different options for filtering. I'm trying to do across the whole page here. Filter. It's interesting. It's not giving me more filters than I wanted. So I'm going to go to a different site. So I'm going to go to the sales team group here. And I'm going to go to the documents just to illustrate some different filter capabilities. I'm going to click on the general tab here, and then I'm going to click on filter. And it's giving me, hey, well, what kind of Word document do I want to filter by Word or PDFs? I can also filter by the different sections typically. So if I've created a different columns, I can filter on those. I can click here on these different statuses and choose the filters that I want. I can also show or hide columns by clicking on a status. So there's several different filter settings you can do that can really optimize and customize your view depending on what you want to see. So the other piece that I like to show as I go back to just SharePoint in general, I'm just going to click up here on SharePoint, go back to it here. It's not really, just click on SharePoint. When you're in the Edge browser, if SharePoint is something you frequently access, you can actually manage it in a tab down here. Again, in the new Edge Chromium browser right here, you can click on the little breadcrumbs, go down to apps, and you can actually install this site as an app. So if I click that, Microsoft SharePoint, install, now it basically has created an app that that's automatically pinned to my taskbar. And so now I'm one click away from being able to open up SharePoint if I want in the future, just like that. And it gives me the access to my sites. So that's a couple of cool things you can do with SharePoint to really optimize your experience. And then last thing I'm gonna do here real quick, click on SharePoint again, I wanna go in here and I actually wanna follow this channel here. So I'm gonna click on follow. We couldn't add this sites, that's interesting. I don't know why it's not allowing me to follow those. I will have to figure that out. I tried it in the MyText account, but if you follow certain sites, as you get different sites in your organization, I don't know why that's not allowing me to follow them at the moment, but when you click on that, either in the site, you should be able to click here, or if you're on this page, you can click the little star here. Again, that should work. That's the first time I've not experienced that. Of course, we're in a demo, so of course that's the way it works. And it'll actually show you kind of your following sites right over at the top. It's kind of like pinning a SharePoint site to your SharePoint view like we were just doing in Teams. All right, so that is some of the key things in SharePoint, but then I'm also going to go to one last thing which segues to our next section, is OneDrive. And we've only got a few minutes left, so I'm going to try and go quickly, but yet make sure we cover everything. I want to actually make sure if I'm working from home, I don't want to have to go to SharePoint or I don't want to have to go to Teams to open up these documents. So what I can do is I can click sync. But before I click sync, what I want to show you, here I got to select out of this really quick. Before I click sync, what I want to show you is this is my File Explorer, and notice this is my Contoso is the demo environment that we're in right now that Microsoft has provided for us. And I'm only syncing the sales team general at the moment. So what I want to show you is I'm going to sync the operations team. I'm just going to escape out of that. So I'm going to sync the operations team. I'm going to click sync here and notice how it's going to show up right here in my File Explorer. So I'm going to click sync, getting ready to sync. It's trying to open it, say yes. Now I'm syncing it. So it happens that quickly. So when you go into it, now notice this operations team general folder and the sales team general folder are now there. I'm going to click on that, and those exact same documents now exist synced to my local machine. So what I would recommend, so if you're in Teams, you can also do that from within Teams, by the way. So I could have clicked sync right here in Teams. Again, I'm in the operations team's general channel. I could click sync up here. So if I'm as a team member and I'm thinking about, well, I use the operations team, the sales team, and the all training channel, I could choose to go into each one of those channels, click on the files tab section, and I could choose to sync that library. Now there's nothing here in the training channel, but I could choose to sync this library. I could choose to sync the sales team library, which I've already done, but you can do that from within Teams, or you can open it in SharePoint and sync from SharePoint. So a couple of different ways you can do that. Now as I go into OneDrive though, there's a couple things that are really important to understand because just by syncing, I didn't necessarily accomplish what I was hoping, which is by actually making these documents available on my machine. Is the status column is really important to understand. So there's a few different statuses. Notice there's a cloud by all of these documents. So the problem with that is that the cloud means that this is just a shortcut to the SharePoint site. Well, what I'm trying to do, if I'm trying to manage my bandwidth and trying to have ease of access, I actually want these to be locally on my machine. So what I want to do is, in fact, maybe I'm going to work on the 4 aspects of effective document collaboration. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to right click and I'm going to choose always keep on this device. Click that. Notice what's going to happen. It's going to turn that icon only to a hollowed in solid check mark. Now, I'm actually going to click on another one. I'm going to open up the open forum one in PowerPoint. So that's going to open up in PowerPoint here, right? So as I'm going to minimize that, I'm going to click back into there. Notice what it did to that icon. It's not a hollowed checkbox, or it's a hollow checkbox, not a completed in checkbox. That means that it downloaded that PowerPoint or this file to my local machine, but if I don't access that file again, it's going to relinquish that file back to the cloud. And that's okay if that's just know that that's what it's doing though. Whereas if it's in the cloud, it's a shortcut to the cloud, so I can double click like what I just did and open that file, but it has to download that file first. Whereas if I always keep it on this device, it'll actually always sync this to my local machine until I tell it otherwise. So I'm going to click on this and right click, and if I want to say free up space, what it'll do is it'll turn that back into a cloud right there. So it's a really simple and easy way to manage that. You don't have to do it at the file level. You could also do it at the folder level. So for instance, I could click on the sales team over here and I'm going to say always keep on this device. Notice where these are noted here, I'm going to say always keep on this device, and it's actually going to sync all those to my machine all at the same time instead of having to do it file by file. So and now by visual indicator, I know that these documents are on my machine and I can easily access them from my machine. And if I make any edits or changes to them, it automatically syncs them back to the cloud. So the master file, the master version is always in SharePoint. This just means that you don't have to download the file to your machine to access it. And it'll, on the back end, it'll always keep your OneDrive and SharePoint in sync. So, and then the other thing that I like to note about OneDrive as we wrap up here, I'm sorry I'm a few minutes over, is that there's multiple OneDrives on the side. And thank you, Microsoft, for making this a little confusing. So the visual indicator to look for here is that when you see the little building icon and the company name, that means that these folders here are being synced from your corporate SharePoint site. So when you see the building icon and the company name, these are being synced from your corporate SharePoint site. If you see OneDrive - company name, this is your kind of like your My Documents, if you will, so that if you want to put documents in here, it basically is syncing them to SharePoint as a backup, so to speak, if it's going to the SharePoint site. But basically, it's all the files exist here on your OneDrive. And then this, of course, is a personal OneDrive, which, again, this is a personal OneDrive, this is your individual corporate OneDrive, and this is your company OneDrive. So it's a little confusing, but as long as you understand those and understand the status column, that will be very helpful for you to manage and make sure that you can optimize and customize your experience, especially if you're trying to manage low bandwidth. So, okay, I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint here and get to the next spot. So this is the summary slide that I want to provide. These are a lot of the different pieces that we talked about here as far as the different things you can go through in Teams, SharePoint, and OneDrive. And by the way, on OneDrive, I didn't hit on this one, the mobile use. I actually use my OneDrive on my phone, and then I also install a little application called Office Lens, which is a Microsoft product. And if you install Office Lens, you can actually you can open up your OneDrive, you can take a picture of a receipt, and it saves right into your OneDrive. And so that way I don't have to like email it to myself. And what that does, it'll actually then show up right here in my OneDrive, here on my computer. So it syncs between your mobile and your device here too. So a little tip that I've liked, it helped me out for like doing reimbursement receipts and things like that. But anyway, here's a short checklist of different things you can do to optimize and customize your personal experience to be able to work from home, so you can minimize the noise, ease of access to information, manage bandwidth when we're working from home, and just hopefully be able to focus on the things that are important to you throughout your work from home time. So if you understand the problems you're trying to solve, write a few of those down right now. try and take some baby steps, write them down. Even if you don't take baby steps the next couple 24 hours or 48 hours, write them down so you can try them at some point in the future. We'll be sending out a recording of this session later today, so you'll be able to reference it if you'd like, and join us for future sessions. We've got a 2-part series next week that'll look forward to, and we have a power user group next Friday that we're kicking off on Friday, May 1st. So join us for future sessions, and thank you very much for attending today. And I'll wrap it up and open it up for any questions that it might be out there. So sorry for running long. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. All right, yeah, we do have some questions here. So the first one is there